Hello, I'm Caitlin Tran, and my group members Richie Martinez and Teo Diaz decided to do a research project on the Winter of Terror. With our research, we learned that there are multiple contributing factors that are heavily impacted when it comes to a natural disaster, and how it's not just the environment or the people that are affected. And with that being said, I will let Teo take it away with where the Winter of Terror originated.
The location of this natural disaster occurred in Austria within a 3-month period. The avalanches began in the Alps between the Austrian and Switzerland border.
What happened? The Winter of Terror consisted of a series of back-to-back avalanches that occurred in the previously mentioned Swiss-Austrian Alps from the period of 1950 to 1951. As you can see in the graph in the lower right, there is a spike in avalanches during the Winter of Terror time period. Nearly 7 avalanches occurred a day, and just more than 1,300 avalanches swept across Switzerland in just over a 3-month period. People residing in the cities were not as affected compared to those in bordering villages and rural towns. The Swiss town of Andermatt and Valais canton of Switzerland specifically were greatly impacted, not just economically, but physically as well, which I will further explain in the next slide. During this period, more than 1,000 buildings were destroyed, and over 40,000 people were buried beneath the snow. Additionally, the Swiss town of Andermatt, located in the Dula Alps, was hit by 6 avalanches within a 60-minute time period, which resulted in a total of 13 human deaths. The Valais canton of Switzerland, as I mentioned before, had lost a total of 92 lives, experienced roughly 500 cattle deaths, and the destruction of 900 human-made structures. The Winter of Terror ultimately claimed 265 lives, 135 of those being from Austria. All of these losses contributed to a dramatic decrease in the economy. The Swiss Austrian Alps suffered greatly due to the destruction of many businesses and villages. Furthermore, the economy relied heavily on the trees in the forest. During this time period, thousands and thousands of acres of valuable forests in both Austria and Switzerland were completely destroyed from being buried in the 10 to 15 feet of snow. The loss of businesses, villages, potential farmland, as well as the forest trees resulted in a huge economic downfall among these two nations. Many people were out of jobs, and it took months for businesses and the economy to recuperate again.
What are avalanches? Avalanches are natural disasters that happen when masses of snow laying on a weaker layer of snow happen to break off and fall down the mountain's steep slopes. Avalanches usually start off quite small, but as the snow accelerates downhill, the avalanche will then grow in mass and volume. Avalanches not only bring down large masses of snow, but oftentimes cause large rocks, trees, and debris to come down as well. Would the Winter of Terror be considered geophysical or climate related? Avalanches can be caused by a multitude of different factors, and in fact can be considered either geophysical or climate related. For an avalanche to be a geophysical disaster, this would require tectonic plate activity. And in this instance, the location of the Winter of Terror just so happens to be sitting on the European and Adriatic convergent tectonic plates, as well as the Peri-Adriatic seam fault. In the map below, we can see the Peri-Adriatic seam fault starting in northern Switzerland and making its way up north through the Austrian border and then goes back down west, east into Slovenia. Although the Winter of Terror took place along a fault line, that was not the actual cause of the hundreds of avalanches that took place. The Winter of Terror was actually a climate-related disaster, and this was due to abnormal climate and atmospheric conditions. These abnormal atmospheric climate conditions consisted of extremely high precipitation and the mixing of an Atlantic warm front mixed with a polar cold front. How exactly did these conditions lead to heavy snowfall? When the two fronts mix, the polar cold front lifts the Atlantic warm front ahead, and as the warm air lifts, it then begins to cool down and condense, which leads to clouds and precipitation to form. But when the cold front mixes with the warm front, the clouds tend to be deeper and more vigorous, which causes more intense showers and thunderstorms. What was the actual trigger of this disaster? The trigger that caused all of the avalanches was due to the high accumulation of snow combined with steep slopes in the Alps. During the Winter of Terror, on average every day, there was about 10 to 15 feet of snowfall.
Following the disasters caused by the Winter of Terror, as well as the large amount of lives taken, research was conducted in order to create an early avalanche warning system, as well as creating avalanche barriers on the Valacia over Airolo in October 1954, and creating new training for rescue mountain dogs. Following 1951, structures were developed to be more efficient, and also protection forests were planted surrounding critical mountain slopes. Hazard maps were created, and new forecasts by the Institute of Snow and Avalanche Research. These new improvements showed their efficiency in 1999 when a similar amount of avalanches occurred in 1951, but this time there were fewer fatalities. Following the tragedy, Switzerland was now included in the ongoing developments in avalanche safety led by UNESCO, also known as the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. More than 5 billion CHF has been invested in avalanche protection. More research is now being focused on forest protection now that researchers are trying to find the best ways for the forests to grow and thrive at the tree line, as well as more protection provided where forests cannot provide adequate protection. The constant fear of another possible winter of terror crosses the residents of the Alps every year once temperatures begin to appear as they did in 1951. So, what did they learn from this? The National Meteorological Service, as well as the experts, have all learned to now place higher precautions when it comes to the same weather conditions as the ones recording during the Winter of Terror. More avalanche warnings are now being placed during the wintertime. Researchers have also shown that Arctic warming caused by an increase of 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit of the Earth's surface has weakened the jet streams. This will then cause dips in temperature that will affect Europe's temperature. Although when the jet streams flip and the mild weather reaches the colder fronts, snow will then form, leaving Europe to experience severe snowstorms. In the end, this will then increase the risk of avalanches in the Alps. As seen in the winter of 2019, the Alps experienced massive snowfall that was due to unusual warm and moist masses caused by large ocean waters evaporating due to the long summer heat. The air currents then carried this to the Alps, where there was now a large amount of wet snow at high altitudes, causing major risks of more avalanches to form. This natural disaster brought major attraction to the global issue about climate change. And now the focus has shifted on how to better this issue and prevent more natural disasters from occurring, such as what Switzerland and Austria experienced in the winter of 1951. Without the effort of bettering climate change, experts believe that countries should be expecting more avalanches as well as other natural disasters to occur as Earth experiences this climate crisis. With the fear of more events to occur like this disaster, countries will face economic losses and the fear of a winter storm continues to rise. Less tourism during the winter will then create a drop in income from top snow resorts. These countries will not only continue to face natural disasters such as the Winter of Terror, but they will face large economic downfalls as the fear of global warming will change how tourism impacts the economy of nations around the world.
During the 3-month time period where both Austria and Switzerland experienced a number of continuous avalanches in the winter of 1950 to 1951, both nations experienced a magnitude of economic losses as well as large amount of casualties. During this winter of terror, Both nations learned to create new evacuation plans as well as recognizing the global issue arising from climate change. New plans were created by both nations to better their contributions to the environment and on how to prevent any new possible disasters from occurring.